Good morning. It's always a revelation to me to think that we can still be talking, still be communicating, and still have a dysfunctional legislature, whether it's on the local, state, or federal level. Right now, I feel there is a struggle for all our souls. You can see it in the news. You can see it by the focus groups that the Times and other newspapers have with various groups of the Democratic, the Republican, and the Independent Party. Ask everyone what affects them. What scares them about America? What would they like to see change? 3 things come to mind immediately. 1, they'd like to see less hatred in America, less violence, less anti-Semitism, less anti-other people, not just the Jewish ones. But what about the Latino, the African American, the Asian, the Muslim? You name it. We'd like to see less hatred, less violence. And we certainly want to see those gun safety laws put into effect. But it's interesting, after you ask everyone, what do they want? Nobody says, how are you going to get it? Nobody's got that roadmap, because when you say, who are you going to vote for again? Well, it gets split right along party lines, as if what the people have said matters little, because they're now going to go right back and vote for the folks who don't want gun safety laws, who support the NRA, who support the alt-right, who actually perpetuate the violence and hatred in America and glorify the young men with swastika tattoos. So there's a disconnect for the struggle for our soul. If we're going to get what we want as a country, and what we want is we want to save lives and not see our children murdered. We want to curtail crime against another human being. But yet, they all go hand in hand. If you didn't voice the hate, and if you didn't belong to groups that glorify the hate and the tattoos that go with it, you wouldn't be taking your AR-15 and shooting a mob of children and women and families. Only in America. We're about number 3 in the world for the most guns. We probably have 40% of all the weapons in the world. In Norway, 50% of most citizens own guns. But you don't hear about gun violence in Norway, except for once, about 10, 15 years ago. And then they enacted laws and it never happened again. In Serbia, same thing happened. 2 mass murders, clamped down on legislation. They got regulations in place. No guns going to people who have mental disorders. No guns going to people without extensive background checks. And every gun is now registered. Well, we can do that in this country easily. We've done it before. But if you keep voting reflexively for folks who you know stand for the NRA and for gun manufacturing and get their money from the gun lobbyists, you're not going to get the safety and the gun controls that you would like to keep your community safe. So I say, there's a struggle for our soul. Can we disconnect ourselves from our habitual pressing of the lever when we go to the polls for people who we know, legislators that we know, support the Second Amendment on steroids. Can you please not vote for them anymore? And start getting decent people into office who will give us the safety that we need. There's always been some anti-Semitism, some hatred in this country. And it'll always be that way because people are people. The difference in a civilized society is we write laws that say this behavior is not allowed. Guns are weapons of mass destruction. It's not fair that a little child has to spend his entire childhood or her entire childhood going through surgeries so that they can be reconstructed physically. But the mental toll on the parents and the child, they've got to be astronomical. And that's another thing we need in this country. Mental health. We need mental health professionals, a lot of them. So I say, there's a struggle for our soul. Can we stop the reflexiveness and vote for the party? I don't think so. I think you gotta say, this party doesn't represent what I want. I want to be safe. I want my children to be safe. And I want my community to be safe. We are indeed an interconnected world. As an interconnected world, what I do here affects what happens there. Because I gotta believe that what happened in Serbia, that's kind of like a copycat shooting. I'd far rather somebody looked at us and said, wow, they're coming up with thorium nuclear reactors. That's gonna really save the world. It doesn't have any waste. Their life is so long for thorium because it goes to 233. It takes about 250 million years for it to decay. We don't have to worry about that. It doesn't make a bomb. It uses 1/200th of fissile uranium 235 and 238. 1/200th, and we can be powering our world and not having to worry about having a carbon footprint. That would be moving forward. That would be taking us into the green technology that we need. You look at what's happening around our world, and there are many, many struggles for our souls. Look at the globe and all the fires. You think Putin, with his fires that are twice the size of every country that are happening in the Urals and Siberia, that would be enough for him to see his whole country going up in smoke. That he'd rather sit down at the international table to talk to everyone about climate change instead of going through with his adventurism, which is a nice way of putting genocide in Ukraine. People seem to find it difficult to think rationally in times of great stress. And who's created the stress? We have. We've created our own stress. We've let Pandora out of the box. We've created this monster, and we can put it back in. So believe me, there shouldn't be any more struggles for our soul. We can do what's right, and when we do what's right, we all benefit. Thank you.